Geologists have spent lifetimes mapping the Grand Canyon. Millions of visitors stand on its rim every year, looking down into this thoroughly surveyed landscape. But beneath those towering cliffs and millions of years of exposed rock lies an intricate, largely unmapped world of deep natural caves and hidden fissures. Long before modern explorers arrived, the Hopi people carefully preserved a history of this underground landscape. Their oldest oral traditions describe a physical sanctuary deep within those caves, a place where their ancestors actually lived before emerging into our current era. According to the Bear Clan, these underground chambers were already occupied by intelligent beings, the Hopi called the Ant People. During periods of ancient environmental collapse, these beings guided humanity into the earth, sheltering them until the surface was safe. Anthropologists historically cataloged these accounts as spiritual cosmology. That in April of 1909, a front-page story in an Arizona newspaper claimed a government-sponsored explorer had just walked into those exact chambers. Indigenous history and mass-printed journalism suddenly pointed to this same hidden location. That overlap triggered an intense historical debate that remains unresolved today. The Hopi origin tradition centers on the Sipapu, a sacred opening in the earth. It marks the physical transition point where humanity climbed out of the dark sanctuary below and into the light of the present world. The caretakers of that sanctuary, the Ant People, were not described as insects. Elders remembered them as tall, bipedal beings covered in hair who possessed deep knowledge of the subterranean networks beneath the canyon. That description aligns strangely with the April 5th edition of the Arizona Gazette. The paper announced an extraordinary find by G.E. Kincaid, an explorer claiming to be on an expedition funded by the Smithsonian Institution. Kincaid reported a tin cave carved into a vertical cliff face, hundreds of feet above the river, reachable only by boat. Inside, he mapped a massive underground complex. A central passage stretched over 1,000 feet, with dozens of geometric chambers branching into the dark. He claimed those rooms held perfectly preserved grain, unfamiliar copper tools, and multiple seated mummies preserved in a style totally foreign to North American archaeology. A man reading a newspaper in 1909 was looking at a physical blueprint that practically mirrored an ancient, protected indigenous memory. Following a second article 4 days later, the coverage stopped. No follow-up reports were printed, no photographs of the mummies ever surfaced, and none of the unfamiliar copper tools ever appeared in public museum displays. Researchers eventually pressed the Smithsonian Institution for their records. The institution stated clearly that they have never employed G.E. Kincaid. They have no record of his partner, Professor S.A. Jordan, and they currently possess no artifacts matching the newspaper's description. However, the timeline offers another angle. Just 3 years before the Gazette article went to print, President Theodore Roosevelt signed the Antiquities Act of 1906. That legislation granted the federal government immediate, total jurisdiction over significant archaeological sites located on protected federal land, which included the Grand Canyon. During this era, the Smithsonian routinely partnered with government agencies to investigate and secure new sites. A massive, unsanctioned find deep in the canyon would have immediately fallen under federal oversight. With zero physical proof remaining, researchers are left with a sharp divide. Either an Arizona newspaper invented a remarkably intricate, unprompted fiction, or federal authorities successfully sealed off a massive archaeological discovery. To evaluate those options, you have to look at the geology of the canyon itself. The towering cliffs rising directly above the river are largely composed of redwall limestone. Limestone is highly porous, and this formation is riddled with natural cave networks. The volume required to hide an enormous underground complex absolutely exists here. In the year 2000, the Hopi Cultural Preservation Office addressed the growing public interest in these hidden locations. They did not release a statement verifying the specific claims of the 1909 expedition. Instead, they emphasized that certain areas deep within the canyon remain deeply sacred and requested that outsiders stop trying to locate and excavate them. The Western documentation of this site vanished into institutional denials within a single week, but through unbroken, disciplined oral transmission, Hopi elders have successfully guarded the history of the underground world for generations. Whether Kincaid's cave was a sensational hoax or a suppressed reality, The enduring truth is that an ancient indigenous memory has outlasted a century of modern investigation, quietly guarding whatever still waits in the dark.